It is the Pac-12 championship game on Friday night with USC and Stanford in a rematch after the Trojans took care of business at the Coliseum in September, 42-24. We bring in Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com to help us break this one down. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, Mark. Can't believe 2 days away from the Pac-12 championship game. Friday night, 5 p.m. in the Bay Area. The traffic's going to be a little rough, but should be a really interesting game.
No question about that. In looking back at what transpired between these two teams back in September, I was surprised at the time, not that USC won the game because I think they have a more talented roster, but just the nature of the game that they really pushed Stanford around on both sides of the ball. They really imposed their will offensively. The defensive line controlled Stanford's massive offensive line. It was a game that was won in the trenches, and USC, I don't want to use the term dominated lightly, but they did in spurts and won decisively.
They did. And if you look back at USC's 12-game schedule, they went 10-2. That's by far the best game they played all year. And that's back in week 2. So I don't know if that's a great sign for the Trojans. They never kind of were able to match the intensity and the dominating factor that they won that game. Now, Stanford was coming off a trip to Australia, and they ended up losing the game after USC to San Diego State. They played a lot better, obviously, since then. But I went watched the replay again last night, and seeing 300 yards of rushing offense, 300 yards of passing. Stephen Carr, the true freshman, going over 100 yards. Uchenna Nwosu batting a whole bunch of balls from the linebacker spot down at the line of scrimmage. And it just, you see, that was really the most complete game that this USC team has played. Now, that was Keller Chris, too, also for Stanford at quarterback, and not KJ Costello, who I think is a much better player. A little surprised David Shaw took as long as he did to kind of put Costello back in there. So, and trying to beat David Shaw twice in the same year is not going to be, it's not going to be an easy task. So this USC team's got to somehow find what they were able to do in that week 2 again, in week 13 for this, or week 14, I guess you could say, for the championship game. I don't think it's going to be easy.
MarkRogersTV talking USC football with Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com as the Trojans prepare for the Stanford Cardinal, a team that had dominated them in recent years up until that September meeting at the Coliseum. It's great, Ryan, that you rewatched the game last night, so it's fresh in your memory. What strikes you in watching USC from week 2 versus 3 months later, and what strikes you about the Trojans being a different team or the same team now versus then?
I think on the offensive side, if you look in that game against Stanford, and we talked to Clay Helton about this afterwards, they were 10 of 12 on third down, and that's a key. When you're playing Stanford, they limit the number of possessions in the game, and you have to be really efficient on offense. The first half alone against Stanford, they had 5 possessions, 1 interception by Darnold, but 4 touchdowns. So they really got the lead, and you were able to keep it and really kind of keep Stanford. They out-Stanforded Stanford, really, in that game. And we just haven't seen that kind of play again since then. Their third down production has dropped off significantly since then, a huge drop-off. They've been really inefficient on third down. And I think that's kind of set them up for some of the some of the failures they've had during the season. They beat these teams, but they just haven't looked all that great doing it. And you talk to the players like, hey, we're 10-2, and they're kind of happy about it. But the fans, a lot of them are really upset. They're like, why aren't you blowing some of these teams out that you really should be doing? And I think Clay Helton and his staff can kind of push all that talk away with a win against Stanford. If you finish 11-2 and win the Pac-12, I mean, that's a really significant factor. They lose this game, I think he's going to lose a lot of the fan base because they haven't felt all that good, Mark, about the wins that they've been getting. So getting a win here is going to be, I think, immensely important for Clay Helton and the whole staff.